Thomas's money is not for you to splurge on. Poor old folks should just go home. At our 60th birthday celebration trip, invited by our son, his wife Chloe uttered these unbelievable words to us, my husband and me. Hearing this, my anger reached its peak. Then, shall we go home? Yeah. She probably didn't expect us to actually leave. Ignoring the bewildered Chloe, we left her in a foreign country and returned home. To show her hell from now on. My name is Abigail. I am a housewife who turned 60 this year. Having been married to my husband, Robert, for 30 years, we were invited on a trip to Australia by our son, Thomas. Mom and Dad, I never could do much in the way of showing my gratitude. This is my small way of saying thanks. Let's go together without any reservations. I have 6 siblings, and Thomas, being the eldest, has been a support to us, his parents. Until our 4th child was born, I worked part-time, my days filled with childcare and household chores, my own time limited to a few minutes a day. Of course, there was no such thing as alone time, and I have no memories of fun outings with friends after having children. Since starting elementary school, Thomas took the initiative to help me and also took care of his siblings. Robert was busy with his job, so Thomas's support was invaluable to me. I am more grateful than words can express for his kindness. Our life was hectic, but once Thomas grew up, got married, and moved out, and as circumstances changed, it ended up just being Robert and I at home. While reminiscing about those noisy days, Thomas returned home after a long time, saying he had something important to discuss. This delightful invitation was the subject, and Robert and I were thrilled. However, this invitation would lead us to an unbelievable situation. Why did you even invite your mom and dad to the trip? These were the words of Thomas's wife, Chloe. While enjoying a rare family dinner with Thomas, who had brought Chloe home, the conversation turned to the upcoming trip to Australia. During this, Chloe pulled Thomas aside into the hallway. Curious, I peered out to see what was happening and saw Thomas being confronted by Chloe, her face filled with anger. Of course, this trip is also to celebrate Mom and Dad's 60th. Why wouldn't I invite them? Why should we have to cover their expenses? If you're inviting them, they should pay their own way. Abigail just lazes around at home and does nothing. I refuse to spend my money on someone so lazy. Chloe is a nurse, and Thomas is a doctor. They don't have children, and Chloe is dedicated to her job, despising me for being a housewife who raised children. Having no time to work is just an excuse. Time is something you make. Only those who are poor at managing their time would say such things to escape. I absolutely refuse to use my money for someone so lazy. I won't allow it. Her yelling seemed to be directed at me, even though I was in another room, making my heart ache. I knew she didn't think highly of me, but to be so hated was unimaginable. And to think she believed I was a housewife because I was lazy brought tears to my eyes. However, Thomas bravely defended me, countering Chloe's words. How can you say such arrogant things when you've never raised 6 kids yourself? Talk about that after you've gone through the same experiences. I respect Mom and am grateful to both of them. We're taking them on the trip, no matter what. Got it? To know Thomas held us in such high regard moved me deeply. I cried silently, making sure not to let Chloe or Thomas hear. From that day on, Chloe's behavior towards me became more hostile when Thomas wasn't around. Whenever she ate our cooking, she'd complain about the taste and mock us with frivolous remarks like how musty our home smelled whenever she visited. It seems she couldn't forgive Thomas for standing up for me. Initially, I was disheartened, wondering why I had to endure such treatment, but Thomas's words that day helped me hold on. However, the day came when I couldn't bear it anymore, the day Thomas called me aside to talk. Suddenly saying this, but I'm thinking of divorcing Chloe. Stunned by his straightforward announcement, Robert and I exchanged surprised looks. Upon asking what happened, Thomas showed us 2 photos. In them was a person resembling Chloe, arm in arm with an unknown man. What's this? While I was at a medical conference, a colleague sent this to me, Chloe meeting a man I don't know. Meaning, Chloe is having an affair? It was shocking. There was no reason for Thomas to be cheated on. Not financially or looks-wise from a third party's perspective. Even relatives had pleaded with us to let their daughters marry Thomas. Such a well-raised boy he was. The idea of Thomas being cheated on was unbelievable. After getting married, I found out Chloe has always been promiscuous. She restrained herself for a while to marry me, but with my recent increase in business trips, it seems she's relapsed. She's been neglecting home and showing a lack of motivation at work too. Honestly, I don't have the confidence to continue with her. Thomas's grip tightened on his trousers, and a bitter expression crossed his face, making my heart ache. Even as a parent, I saw how devoted he was to our home. He grew up to be a kind person who understands others' pain, my irreplaceable treasure. Who could forgive seeing such a person hurt? So, I'm thinking of divorcing her, but this evidence alone isn't enough to confront her. That's why I need Mom and Dad's help. With that, Thomas made a proposal. Though surprised by his plan, if it would save Thomas, Robert and I agreed to his proposal and plotted to discipline Chloe. Time passed, and the day of the trip arrived. Robert and I went to pick up Chloe, who was waiting at her house. "Thank you for picking me up, Robert." Emerging from her house, she wore a hat and a white dress, as if playing the part of flirtatious girl. Truth be told, Chloe had been making advances on Robert as well. Probably because Robert's family was wealthy. Her pursuit for money was apparent. Whenever Thomas wasn't around, she'd position herself beside Robert, even once insisting on sitting in the passenger seat instead of me. Claiming she got carsick, a blatant lie we later discovered. She never had motion sickness. At the time, without any reason to doubt her, we took her words at face value, but now it's different. All my suspicions turned into conviction, and Robert and I were nothing but wary. However, showing our attitude would ruin the plan. Today's trip was supposed to be a celebration for us. A trip to carry out our plan without letting her catch on. We behaved as usual, keeping our guard up. "Thomas seems to be coming later, says he's caught up with work. Let's head to the location first." Landing at the airport and proceeding with the formalities, Chloe commented, clearly bored. She likely wanted to flaunt having Robert and Thomas by her side, making me jealous. Whenever it was the four of us, Chloe acted in ways to stir my jealousy. Reflecting now, I wonder why I hadn't noticed such obvious behavior before. Or perhaps I did notice but chose to ignore it, thinking it might hinder Thomas's happiness after all the hardships he'd faced. But now, there's no need to endure any longer. I fearlessly stood beside Robert, as Chloe entwined her arm with Robert's in a sullen manner. "I've never been overseas with my dad, so I'm happy to be traveling with Robert. You're fulfilling the memories I couldn't make with my dad." She then gave me a spiteful smile and hugged Robert's arm closer to her chest. Far from being pleased, Robert looked annoyed, but Chloe seemed oblivious to his discomfort. She was watching me, seemingly enjoying wondering how I would react. But I kept my composure, silently pleading with Robert to endure, as we completed the boarding process. We boarded the plane in a hellish atmosphere and set off. In a distant foreign land, she was about to experience her own hell. Upon our long-awaited arrival at the airport, cheerful crew members greeted us at the exit. Thomas was supposed to be our guide, but he was absent due to work. As we wondered what to do, Chloe sweetly leaned on Robert. "Robert, can't we hire a guide now? I've only got a little allowance from Thomas, and I don't have much money." Chloe, despite having her own decent income, was clearly expecting to be treated. It seemed she was checking if he had brought extra money. Seeing through her sly thoughts, Robert sighed in exasperation. "Chloe, I hate to say this, but we were invited here today by Thomas, you know? Trying to get us to pay for you doesn't seem right, does it?" I was internally shocked. He sounded like a self-righteous old man. It was hard to predict how Chloe would react to such a statement. Our original plan was to act after getting to the hotel, but I was caught off guard by Robert's preemptive strike. "What are you saying? You want me, who didn't bring much money, to hire a guide? We're questioning the assumption that it's natural for us to treat you. Abigail and I were invited by Thomas. We heard Thomas was covering the expenses, so we didn't bring much cash either. It's not right to just assume we'll cover for you." Hearing about the lack of funds, Chloe clicked her tongue, ruffled her hair, and immediately distanced herself from him. Her overt frustration made both Robert and me dumbfounded. "If you don't have money, just say it clearly. Such useless old people." Chloe's shockingly blunt comment was loud enough for us to hear. At that moment, Robert and I exchanged looks and proceeded with our plan. "Hey Chloe, that's no way to talk." "We were just stating the obvious." "So annoying. Both of you preaching? I don't need that. You act as if it's natural for you to be treated, yet you were also relying on Thomas's money for today's trip. You had no intention of spending any money because you were the ones being celebrated, right? You had the same mindset, so stop acting all high and mighty." Clearly, she no longer cared about pretending to be nice. Her attitude changed drastically, looking down on Robert and me with contempt in her tone. "Don't splurge with Thomas's money. Poor old people should just go home." Hearing that, my anger reached its peak. "Then let's go home." "Yeah." Calmly responding to her words, a flustered Chloe opened her mouth to interject. "You don't even have a ticket for the return flight. What are you being stubborn for?" It's laughable. In truth, Chloe had only been given a one-way ticket by Thomas. He had explicitly told her she was prone to losing things and couldn't be trusted, so she reluctantly settled for just the departure ticket, leaving her unable to return to America without Thomas. That was the predicament she found herself in. But we were unaware of her dire situation. Knowing such a pitiful fact would hurt her dignity. She resorted to blustering with tough words. But we had already heard about this from Thomas. And there was something he had already given us. "No return ticket? What made you think that?" I said, pulling out the return plane tickets, including Robert's. Chloe was stunned. She was speechless, her mouth agape. "We have our return tickets, you know? Why do you two have tickets?" "Why? It's only natural to have our own tickets, isn't it? Or what? Don't tell me Thomas didn't give you a return ticket?" As if it were payback for all her taunting, I mocked her, showing that Thomas trusted us more than her. Being belittled over such a trivial matter by a housewife she looked down upon must have been unbearable for her pride. Even as I thought it petty of me, considering everything that had happened, this felt like nothing. Actually, it seemed hardly enough. As I watched her turn red with anger. "Impossible. Just go back already. Just seeing your faces annoys me." I laughed inwardly at her almost sore loser-like response. Seeing Chloe flee in frustration was satisfying. She had always looked down on others. She deserved to suffer fully. Thinking this, I decided to explore the airport vicinity with Robert until our return flight. Leaving Chloe behind, we quickly returned to the US and, as planned, met Thomas at a cafe near the airport. Seeing us return, Thomas greeted us with a wry smile. "Welcome back, both of you. The flight must have been tiring, huh?" "My body aches. Even first class is tough on the old bones. Sorry, Thomas, for having such good seats on our return." "It's me who should be thankful. Sorry for putting you through that." "Nonsense. I'm still young. But I panicked when you suddenly picked a fight with Chloe at the airport. I didn't know what to do since it wasn't part of the plan. I couldn't take it anymore. Her attitude was just too repulsive." As Robert apologized with a wry smile, Thomas's mobile phone rang. "Chloe?" "Yeah. She's been calling nonstop since hotel check-in time. Probably panicked because she thinks her hotel was canceled. She can't do anything by herself." Thomas laughed off the continuously ringing mobile phone on silent mode. It was my first time seeing this side of him, and I made a mental note never to cross him. "Thanks to you both, I've gained a lot even here, so I think I can finally divorce her. Sorry for involving you in this mess during what was supposed to be a celebration." "What are you saying? It's a celebration in its own right for me. Now you won't have to put up with that face anymore." For the few days until Chloe's return, we enjoyed some quality family time after a long while. Then, the moment of confrontation arrived. "Thomas, what is the meaning of this? Explain yourself." After receiving a message from Chloe that she was on the plane, we had gone to the airport. As soon as she saw Thomas after getting off the plane, Chloe began yelling so loudly it seemed the entire airport could hear. Realizing we were drawing too much attention, we got her into the car and headed to their home. Then, upon seeing the inside of the house, Chloe noticed something was off. "Wait, what is this? What's happening?" She realized the house looked strangely barren. "Let's explain everything in order. Shall we go to the living room for now?" Ignoring the confused Chloe, we, as a family, moved inside. After thanking Thomas for the coffee, we quickly moved on to the main topic. "Chloe, there's something we need to talk about. First, explain yourself. What were you thinking doing such a thing? Thanks to you, it's been one disaster after another. I couldn't even get into the hotel, and how many times do you think I was given the wrong directions? I was walked around so much, I might as well have been mountain climbing. My legs are sore from muscle pain, and the flight back is on a cheap economy class. Economy. I never thought I'd see the day when I'd have to pawn my luxury watch." Her shrill voice was so grating, and next to me, Robert looked at her with a puzzled expression. It seemed she had pawned her watch to make some money. Throughout this, Thomas was quietly observing her and, after she finished her rant, he calmly spoke up. "Is that all you have to say? What do you mean?" Chloe reacted, seemingly expecting an apology from Thomas, surprised by his unexpected response. It was probably the first time she saw him looking at her with such a defiant gaze. She glared back at him, unflinchingly. "You have no idea why you're in this situation, do you?" Thomas's provocative words seemed to make her ponder. Chloe began to speak in a haughty tone, crossing her legs and giving Thomas a cold glare. "Of course. Who's ever heard of leaving their wife overseas like this? What have I done?" She must think her affair has gone unnoticed. Thomas sighed in exasperation before showing her 4 photos. I didn't miss how Chloe's face went pale the moment she saw them. "Then let's hear it. You recognize this man, don't you?" Chloe was taken aback by the incontrovertible evidence of the photos. There were 2 pictures of her and her lover in bed, and both Robert and I looked at her with contempt. We distanced ourselves from her as if she were something filthy. "I was aware you've been wastefully spending my money. But I also know I've been making you feel lonely. I'm a workaholic, I've chosen work over family, and I've been aware of it. That's why I never said anything, but to think you were financially supporting this man." Thomas had hired a detective to secretly investigate Chloe up until the trip, uncovering her affair. The man was a bartender, and she had been his top patron, even developing a romantic relationship that clearly crossed the line of mere customer and service provider. He had frequently stayed at their home while Thomas was away on business trips. "You said you had a terrible time in Australia? Then, what about this? You've been deceiving me, laughing behind my back, and even complaining about me to him. A useless man with nothing but money, you said. I confirmed it myself when I met him. I even have the audio from that time." "You met him?" "Of course. Because I knew whatever you'd say would be full of lies. I made him spill everything first." Showing her the voice recorder, likely containing the recordings, Chloe seemed to resign herself. Without a word to counter, she began to apologize profusely to Thomas. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I was tempted by evil." "Tempted by evil?" I couldn't help but react to her words. "So being tempted makes it okay to hurt Thomas like that?" Thomas had always protected me from her, trying his best to juggle work and home life for the sake of our family. Her words, betraying him as if it were nothing, broke something inside me. "How can you think an apology makes it okay, after everything Thomas has been through because of you?" Tears spilled from my eyes as a mix of sadness and anger overwhelmed me. Robert comforted me in an attempt to calm me down, wrapping an arm around my shoulders and gently hugging me. Seeing us like this, Thomas once again spoke up, presenting her with divorce papers. "I've been told about what you've done to Mom and Dad. I have no intention of continuing with you. This house will be sold. Pack your things and leave immediately. Even if you refuse to accept the divorce, I'm willing to take it to court to separate from you. What you've done is now coming back to haunt you. You better accept it gracefully. And so, we cut ties with her. Even though Chloe pleaded with Thomas afterwards, his patience had worn thin. He coldly dismissed her, finding her presence bothersome, and decided to return to his parents' house until the divorce was finalized. The reason their house looked so bare was that Thomas had called movers to take his belongings back to his parents' house. Seeing how efficiently he managed everything, I couldn't help but admire his sharp mind. As Thomas had said, the divorce ended up going to court. Despite Chloe's repeated denials, the affair was undeniable with the photos and the lover's testimony, making the divorce inevitable. She was even ordered to pay compensation in the divorce settlement. She came to our house several times, begging to meet with Thomas, but I refused. She apologized for her disrespect towards me and pleaded to speak with Thomas. However, I was furious at her words. Enough with the disrespect. I will never forget what you have done. Never show your face to our family again. I said this and called the police, and she never appeared before us again. Finally, we returned to our peaceful days. Thanks to Thomas's arrangements, we got to redo our 60th birthday celebration. The entire family gathered, grandchildren included, for a grand celebration. Dad, Mom, please live long and happy lives. We thanked Thomas, who said this with a bright smile, as we continued to watch over our children's happiness and growth.